So this week at Interview with a Wire, we received someone well-known worldwide, Sammy Smith, a great competitor. She's especially known for her nunchuck pass. She's a great person. We're talking about it off air, and she really gave a lot of content. She talks, she tell anecdote. She's really a great guest to receive. She was generous with her answer, and we go all around her parkour in martial arts. She started in Kenpo, switched to Taekwondo. We talk about all the team that she does. Now she's with Team Paul Mitchell, but she started with the AKA team, the Team AKA. So it's really a big parkour for someone that age. And so it was really nice. We finished with competition talk, and it was really great. And we do have a Patreon Blitz quiz. So Manu.
So if you want to see the extra footage with the Queen of Chucks, you go to our Patreon. The link is right there. You subscribe. We have the English side of our Patreon. We have the French side. But if you read correctly, you can have access to both. If you subscribe at $10 a month, you have everything we produce. And we have new podcasts that coming out soon, especially in English. We have a new podcast coming out. So follow us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Instagram, follow Sammy on Instagram, Queen of Chucks, and have a good podcast.
Les cicatrices nous rappellent d'où on arrive. Les combos qu'on doit livrer quand le destin chavire. Guerrier, on fera ce qu'il faut pour la famille. Cœur de lion, œil de tigre, on a la paix dans la mire. The battles are never ending, I know. But we will get up and get on with the fight. And we'll do whatever for what is right. Just put your trust in us,
So this week at Interview with a Wire, we received someone from the US, a well-known competitor in the NASCAR circuit in the sport martial art karate. So it's really an honor and a pleasure to have you this week. So let's start that with Sammy Smith, a nice guest. So thanks to come here today and take the time to talk with us about your parkour in martial art.
Thank you so much for having me. I love to talk about martial arts because it's been my passion all my life. I'm sure I'm going to get into that later on. So I really love doing all these type of podcasts. I think it's like a great way to talk about the sport. I'm super excited to be on the show.
Yeah, thanks. And plus, I feel like we are so underrepresented in like the sport community. You know what I mean? It's we know each other, but like if we talk about like that to other people, they don't know us that much. Maybe the bigger star, maybe you, Jackson. You know, but like I feel like it's really underrated circuit still. So let's get into your parkour right away. So when and where martial art comes in your life? When did you start it?
I started, when I was 3 years old. I love to tell this story because this is such a funny story. When I was 3 years old, I don't know if in Canada if you guys have this store, but in the United States we have a store called The Gap. It's kind of just like a clothing store. And I was 3 years old and I saw this commercial come on TV, and it was this kid I didn't know what martial arts was at the time, but he was just spinning around and throwing some kicks and punches. And apparently, I don't remember this, but apparently I thought it was really cool. And every time the commercial would come on the TV, I would just like be drawn to the television and just watch it in like awe. So that was when I was 3, and the karate school where my parents had wanted to sign me up, you had to be 4 to take classes at the time. So I had to wait a whole entire year. And like, I was just, I guess, very anxious to get started in martial arts. And the day that I started was September 10th, 2001. So that was like 20 years ago. And, you know, I loved karate ever since that first class. Like, couldn't get enough of it. Like, would cry when I couldn't come to karate. Like, I was just so into that. That was like my life. And then as I, started competing, got on teams, when I was on this team called Team Pro Rank, which was my second team that I got on, there was this kid named James Solis, and he was, really good back in the day, like awesome. And he actually was the kid that I saw in the Gap commercial when I was 3 years old. And now we were teammates like 8 years later. So it was, I love to tell the story because it literally was like, it came around like full circle. Like somebody who inspired me who had no idea, like, what are the chances that I end up becoming teammates with him, like, years later. So that's how I got started into martial arts.
That's a really cool story, actually.
I'm from Long Island, New York, and I've always been here all my
Okay.
life. So, yeah, that's where I started karate, a school on Long Island.
East Coast. And what style did you start with in martial art?
The first style that I started in with that karate school I just talked about was Kenpo martial arts. It was like a Japanese, Chinese Kenpo. And then years later, like as I got my black belt, I wanted to like branch out and expand like my knowledge in martial arts. So I found a Taekwondo instructor. And I ended up getting my 3rd degree black belt through Taekwondo. So I have a black belt in Kenpo and a 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Okay, that's awesome. And did you start competing with the Kenpo school, or when you made the transition to the Taekwondo, you start more like open your view on that?
I started competing when I was 5 years old, so I was still with the first school at this time. But when I was competing, I was like on the school's competition team, so I was already doing like the CMX stuff. So when I went to like those local competitions, I wasn't doing like Kenpo forms. The closest thing to Kenpo that I was doing was self-defense, like that division. But everything else was nunchucks and open forms, and I don't believe I sparred at all, but not in the tournaments. I did at the karate school, but not in any tournaments. So yeah, I've been competing for 19 years now, so it definitely wasn't something that I started later in my karate career.
Mm-hmm.
That's really nice. And when you branch out to Taekwondo, this is when you decided to practice nunchucks. Where did it comes in your...
No, I don't even remember the first time I had nunchucks in my hand. Like, I remember at the karate school, like the first one that I was talking about, the Kenpo school, when I was on the competition team, there were these 2 brothers, like older kids, part of the team, and they would make homemade nunchucks. So that was actually my first pair of nunchucks. They were like homemade, but they were legit. Like they weren't like falling apart or anything like that. They were like good nunchucks, but they were made out of like PVC pipe from like a Home Depot. I don't know if you guys have that, but like a stuff like that, and like rope. Those were my first chucks, not like the chain chucks that I'm using now. But yeah, I don't even remember the first time I had nunchucks in my hand. I think I was around 5, so I was probably an orange belt at the time. And yeah, I've used other weapons like here and there, but obviously I'm, known for nunchucks. So that's like my main weapon of choice that I stick with.
I told one of my parents today of martial art, you sent me something, and I was like, about a Paul Mitchell competitor. Jackson put in the story today, and I was like, hey, I'm having his teammate today, Sammy Smith. He was like, oh, the Queen of Nunchuck, and I was like, that's about that, yeah.
Yeah, that's because my Instagram name is Queen of Chucks. In case
see,
watching that wants to follow me.
Yeah, but I think it's a pretty fit title for you, anyways.
Thank you.
And when you grow up in martial art, who was your like role model? Because let's be honest, nunchucks are not the most popular weapon in tournament. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you see more often bow or katana or
even
kama.
Yeah, for sure. Well, when I was everything kind of all starts back at that first school. So when I was in that first school on the competition team, there was this girl who was also part of that competition team that had gone to the US Open back in 2003. And she had brought back a DVD from the night show. And that's where I saw competitors like Taylor Lautner and Twilight, Shark Boy and Lava Girl. Like, yeah, he's really what got me started into like the extreme stuff and the tricking. So that I saw Taylor, but then I also saw people like Matt Emig and Daniel Sterling. And fast forward a year, the 2004 US Open was my first NASCA tournament that I went to. And there I actually saw Matt and Daniel because they had just finished up their Team Sync division. So I went up to them and I asked them if they could sign my 2003 US Open DVD. And that's kind of where I first had like a little bit of contact with Matt and Daniel. Daniel was actually the one who kind of set me up with Matt, and I ended up working with Matt because at the time Matt also lived on Long Island in New York. like not too far away from me. So, you know, it was pretty easy to take lessons from him. And I was actually his first like real private lesson student. So, and he taught me chucks from like, you know, obviously I knew a little bit about chucks, but he really took my training to that next level. He put together all my first forms that I competed with, like for real, you know, in NASCA when I was a black belt. And Matt Emig and Daniel Sterling are really the ones who, you know, got me going and being super motivated and just wanting to become the best. But Daniel didn't do chucks. Daniel only did commas. So Daniel would help me with the open forms, and Matt would mostly help me with my chucks, but he also helped me with my open forms as well.
That's crazy. And did you ever consider to study the more traditional part of nunchucks, like kobudo and stuff like that?
Not really. I've always liked the flashy stuff a little bit more. But at the same time, I always believe that you should have good traditional martial arts because like flash really is trash without the basics. So I do think that everybody, you know, should have a like a good foundation in traditional karate. But as far as the nunchucks goes, I've always been more into the flashy manipulations, releases, finger rolls, hand rolls, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's what separates the good from the best when they do like an open form. If their stance is traditional and their hands going like all the way, not just like halfway. So yeah, I think traditional is really the foundation to a good open. But at the same time, back in beginning of 2000, open form was still very new. So yeah, people like you and your teacher took it to the other level. And right now it's just crazy, you know?
Yeah. The crazy part is that like, what you were saying before, was when like I started, there weren't a lot of people doing nunchucks. Like it wasn't like that popular. And even though bow and commas are still a little bit more popular, like now in today's, world, there's a lot more nunchucks too. Like a lot more nunchuck competitors and a lot of girls that are also doing nunchucks, which is really cool to see because like you guys were talking about, nunchucks wasn't really ever a really popular weapon, but now it's getting a little bit more, liked. Now people are like, like paying a little bit more attention to it. And honestly, not being biased here, but I'm going to sound biased. It should be because I honestly think that nunchucks is one of the hardest weapons because you got to keep them spinning. If you don't spin them fast enough, the chuck bends and it doesn't look as good. You have 4 sticks that you have to hold on to. There's just a lot. And sometimes when you throw it, the nunchuck has like a mind of its own. And if they're not weighted right, like you never know. There's a whole bunch of like factors that go into nunchucks. So I think it is a really hard weapon to use. And I'm glad that more people are using it and it's starting, to get a little bit more recognition.
Mm-hmm, yeah, 100%. It's really harder. And, did you start like with a long chain and then go with a short chain? How does it come?
No, my first chucks that I was talking about that are made of those PVC pipes, they had rope. They were rope.
Yeah, but in competition. Oh, you compete with them?
No, well, yes,
Okay.
I did when I was an underbelt, but when I moved up to black belt, I don't remember when I started using chain chucks. I think I was a black belt for like a little bit and using rope chucks, but then I went into the chain chucks not too long after, I believe, I moved up to black belt. And the chucks that I use now, they're 3-link nunchucks. And I use the adult size now, which are 11-inch. But when I was little, this is actually kind of funny. Mr. G, he's the owner of G-Force Weapons. Yeah, he would make me, because the chuck sizes would be 9-inch, 10-inch, and 11-inch. And the 10 was too small for me, but the 11 was too big. So he would make me custom 10.5 size nunchucks, and he would call them Sammy size chucks. So I thought that was pretty funny, but I don't use them anymore. I use the full size 11-inch 3-link. And since we're talking about nunchucks, I might as well say this, that I do have my own signature nunchucks.
That is awesome. That was my next question. So it's perfect.
Yeah,
You brought it up.
I do have my own signature nunchucks that I sell. So if anyone's interested in that, they can message me on my Instagram. And they're pretty cool. And they are like the 3-link nunchucks, and they come in 9, 10, and 11. So there's a pair for everybody on there.
Okay, what's make them yours? Is it the weight, how they balance, or what it is? The style?
Well, the color, yeah, the style. The color is pretty cool. It's green. It's hard to explain, but it's like green, orange, and purple with some cracked ice, and it says Sammy Smith signature nunchucks like on the bottom with like my little signature on it. So yeah,
Okay, that is awesome.
I have pictures of them. I'll use them on my Instagram, so you guys can go check that out.
Manu's gonna edit something. It's gonna appear somewhere. Don't worry about
perfect.
that.
Okay,
Let's make him work.
right here.
Yes, that's perfect. And have you ever considered like switching? Because as we say, it's a really hard weapon. So have you ever considered like to go and do some camo, or like did you switch at some point, or you always stick with the nunchuck?
Yeah, so I've always used the nunchucks, but I would get a little bit bored sometimes. I think every competitor kind of gets a little bit bored of their weapon sometimes, and I wanted to switch it up. But at the same time, I didn't want to take away what I was known for. So in the extreme weapons and the musical weapons divisions, I would still keep my nunchuck routines. But there were like some years that I wanted to just have a little bit more fun. And for the creative weapon Division, I've done commas a few times because like I mentioned, Daniel Sterling, he was really good at commas. So he helped me learn that weapon, and he put together a form for me. And I actually won with it. So that was pretty cool. And then I also one year did bow for creative weapons form. And I already had a little bit of a bow background because from when I was little, I would do the traditional weapons division and I would use the bow there. So I already knew how to use the bow. Also, Lauren Kearney, another person that was on Team Paul Mitchell, and actually Lauren is the current coach of Paul Mitchell. She was my traditional weapons coach, so I had a pretty solid foundation in bow. And bow was like always the weapon that I like to play around with. Like in my old living room, I would like mess around with like the bow, and my parents would get a little, they would be worried that I would hit the TV and like,
don't get too close from the TV.
exactly. But yeah, yes. That would be like the weapon that I would just play around with. Actually, I used to play around with double bow before it was even like mainstream, like a thing, just because I honestly had two bows in my living room and I would just mess around with it. And then like a year later, like people started using double bow and I was like, I've literally been messing around with this, but I'm not a bow competitor, so I never did it.
I should have brought it first, but I feel like it was a really cool trend. But then a lot of people were still doing one bow because, let's be honest, it's faster. The tricks aren't better than one another, but like you cannot have the same speed with two staff than one staff, I think personally, and that's why like good people like Esteban Tremblay, Jackson keep with one bow. So it's really cool to see, and it was different and really like unexpected, let's be honest. But one staff is still like just faster, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I think they're both great. I do agree with you. You can definitely go faster with a single bow. And now that people are doing double bow, it doesn't make single bow any less like cool. Single bow is still cool. It's just that now there's almost this, it's not a new weapon, but it kind of is when people are doing double bow. But yeah, there's some cool things that you could do with double bow that obviously you can't do with single bow, and vice versa. But I think they're both like different and unique in their own way. And as long as, you're having fun and, doing it with good, solid technique, I think they could both be shown off really well.
Yeah, and at that point, I prefer, I prefer double sword. Double katana is just like, with Coleman, who democratized it. It's just, I'm like, wow, I prefer two sword, like Leonardo, Ninja Turtle stuff.
Yeah.
But that is just me.
Yeah.
Moving on to,
awesome.
Yeah, Coleman is awesome guy. I met him once in a competition in Quebec, and he was such a gentleman, really a nice guy. Cool dude. Moving on to the next topic. So you talk about your second team that you got on. How does it come? Like, let's talk to your first team and then where you are now. I think it's spoiling with your Team Paul Mitchell t-shirt, but where did you start and how do you got on your first team first?
Yeah, so when I first started competing, I was just representing my school team. So it wasn't a sport karate team. It was just my karate school that I would wear. And not too long after I moved up to the black belt division, I think I was like pretty good, good enough to be recognized just a little bit. Although, it was a little bit rough for me at first when I moved up. I was getting fifth places a lot, fourth, thirds. It took me a while to actually win. But once I kind of, scratched the surface and winning in black belt, John Sharkey from Team AKA was the first person to invite me on to a team. So that was my first team that I went on. And from there, I'm sure you know Tyler Weaver. You know who Tyler Weaver is? He was also part of Team AKA. And that's when we became, closer friends. And we just kind of knew each other since that point. He was one of my first NASCA friends that I had. And then not too long after that, like a year later, Tyler got asked to be on Team Pro Rank. And like I mentioned, eventually I end up going to Team Pro Rank. So I kind of followed, not really on purpose, but I kind of followed Tyler in that. But at the time, you wanted to be on, like, there was two teams that you really wanted to be on. Of course, Team Paul Mitchell. That's always, like, at the top. And it's been at the top of my list since I was 7, when Matt would make me write my goals out. Ever since, because Matt was on Paul Mitchell, Daniel was on Paul Mitchell. All the people that I looked up to and watched on the DVD for the most part from the U.S. Open were on Paul Mitchell. So I knew that was the team that you wanted to be on. But if you weren't on Paul Mitchell at the time, and this is like 2007, you wanted to be on this team called Team Pro Rank, because I think it was like right there with Paul Mitchell. And Mike Kelly, he was the owner of Pro Rank, and he asked me if I wanted to be on that team, and I think it was a really good fit for me. It was a good move for me. So I went to that team, and from there I was introduced to Marcel Jones and, a lot of these old school people that I'm not sure if, like, the viewers nowadays will know who I'm talking about, but I feel so old.
The OG will know.
But, these are like, it's crazy for me to say back in the day because it makes me sound old. It's not that too far back, but now in comparison to today, it is back in the day. So Marcel Jones, he was the captain of the team. He was amazing at creative and so sharp with his hands. And I was part of the demo team for Pro Rank, and I got on my first U.S. Open stage from Team Demo. And I was on Pro Rank
U.S. Open. That one is on TV, right? In the U.S.?
Yes, that's the one that ESPN2 usually covers. It's like the most like crazy tournament. Like that's a whole nother conversation. But
I bet. Okay, we're gonna come back to that later. Don't worry.
I spent a lot of time on Team Pro Rank. It was a great team. But as time went on, people kind of, the team got smaller. People kind of fizzled out. They went their own ways. The team kind of died down. So it was time to find a new team. And Mr. G, the owner of G-Force, he asked me if I wanted to be part of Team G-Force. And I went to that team. And I was on that team for a fair amount of time. I believe maybe 4 years, maybe a little bit more than that or less. Not really sure, but somewhere around that time. And then right before the 2015 U.S. Open, Lauren Kearney, she called me and she asked me if I wanted to be on Team Paul Mitchell, and I could not believe it because after 17 years of trying to get on this team, I finally got on the team, and it just felt like super surreal. And yeah, Paul Mitchell forever. That's it. There's no more. Just Paul
and then
Mitchell.
It's been like 6 years with them, if my math is good. So that is awesome. So now, are you one of the older in the team member, or how does where are you in the hierarchy?
Well, without Jackson, he didn't compete at Diamonds, but I'm sure he's still competing. But let's say Jackson, after Jackson, I'm next, and I am the oldest on a team now, but Jackson is technically the oldest on the team, like how many years he's been on. As far as age wise, I'm the oldest, and then, like I said, I'm second to Jackson in the hierarchy, I guess you want to call it.
Yeah. Whatever it is, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Now everybody else is. There's some new people on the team now, but yeah, I feel really old.
Like me, I'm 25 and I'm like in Canada, and so I feel old too, and I'm like, damn, it's because people usually stop competing at like 17, 18 because school got too serious, or they go into martial art like 100%. So that's why you're like 25 and you're an old timer already. It's like, god damn it, mid 20s, and you're like, man, most of people wasn't there anymore, and people are coming. So yeah, it's a really weird situation, right?
For sure. I feel your pain. I'm 24 and I feel like I'm just super old.
Yeah, but we still in. And
Yeah.
so what do you do like except competition? Do you have like do you want to like to have a dojo, have a student? How does it goes outside competition for you with karate
For
or martial
sure.
arts? Sorry.
So I went to college for exercise science. I graduated with a bachelor's. I graduated college 2 years ago in 2019. And my goals kind of changed like a little bit throughout school. At first, I wanted to go to PT school because I wanted to be a physical therapist. But as I went through the classes, I kind of realized that I like the strength and conditioning side more to my major. So that has been something that has been super helpful also to my training
Of
because
course.
you need to be strong to be powerful in the divisions. So they kind of like coincide with each other. So that's really cool that I could go to school for something that I could use for my own training. It was like kind of like I had an edge in a way, but not really. But I had some knowledge that other
But
people didn't
see,
have.
that's something I hate when people hate on open form, on in the internet. It's like they're not effective. Man, do you know how much strength it took to do a backflip or angel and go like up in the air? Their leg are crazy powerful. Like if they do a turn back kick or side kick, they're gonna destroy people. It's just people overrated it because they don't do it. They don't put time and effort. But like me, I have kids who does all them traditional, fight, and open, and each division is just as hard as the other one, and it takes courage to do backflip as much as a punch when you have the chance to be counterside. You know what I mean? So it's
Sure.
really, I think, just people don't know what it takes because they don't do it. But yeah, open people are not to mess with. You know what I mean?
For sure.
It's a really hard conditioning, core strain, and everything. The leg and yeah. You have all my respect.
Thank you. Yeah, it definitely is like a full body sport, and there's always that risk of injury. Like every time, like
Oh yeah.
we feel strict, there's always that possibility that we're gonna land wrong. Something's gonna happen. It's not as easy as a lot of people think, and yeah, there are a lot of as people would call keyboard warriors that like to make fun of us, but it's okay. Everyone is entitled to
I
their
like that. Keyboard warriors. Wow. Never heard that one.
Well, there you go. Now you can use that to describe those people, but it's okay. Like I said, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but it is a lot
Exactly.
harder than people think. But
Yep.
yeah, what I was going with before is that I went to school for strength and conditioning, so that's something I have an interest in, and I would like to own my own martial arts studio, hopefully in the very near future, and incorporate strength and conditioning into that. Like my dream facility is to have like a spring floor where I could be teaching karate and tricks, and then like off to the side like a turf with like some machines and strength and conditioning stuff. Like that, I would love that. So hopefully,
That'll be the dream.
hopefully maybe I don't know how long it will take me, but I would love to come back to this podcast and be like, wow, I really did that. I talked about that here, and now like it's crazy because it's happening. So I'm
Well,
gonna do it.
I listened to motivation video, and the first step is to say it, write it, and imagine it. If you have it in your mind and you work hard enough, you're gonna bring it to reality. I don't doubt it. And like for real, all it take me. I have 2 dojo here. I started my first one when I was almost 18, 17, and all you need is money for real. Like money, and you opened it, and then you're such a big name, I guess. So like people's gonna come to you when it's gonna go well. So don't worry about that. Just put money aside, buy some mats because mats are expensive, and and some machine, and there you go. I'm sure you have everything to make the perfect combination.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I already started looking at like how much things would cost, and to own a martial arts studio, it is quite expensive. So definitely,
It is.
But it's so worth it. Like I've been saying, like this is my passion. I don't know anything else really, just martial arts. So I'm destined to have my own studio. But yeah,
you just wake up. You have your private lesson. Me, I have the podcast. You have the course at night. You have the exam on the weekend, the competition, the seminar. It's a nice life when you love that. It's just it is a perfect dream.
for sure, and it doesn't feel like work too because you enjoy it. So
Exactly. I'm never like, I'm gonna go teach. It's like I'm gonna go see kids that just want to be like us, So it's really a nice job. It gives you fuel, Like the more excited they are, the better my class is because I have more energy to give them. So yeah, it's really awesome. And you talk about injury. Did you ever suffer from some of it, like a knee or something? Because the back, how does it happen?
Yeah.
Tell us that.
My body is like probably a little messed up. Well, if we go in order of what I know, I'm sure I have things in my body that I don't even know are like wrong, but it's fine because I'm still able to do stuff.
Because we don't quit.
Yeah, we don't quit. But well, you know, I've pulled muscles before and stuff like that. That's nothing, you know. That's like baby stuff, pulling muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah, one time in competition, this video is on YouTube. If you could find it, I was doing a beat twist cork, and my foot got stuck on the mat, and I like totally just ate the floor, face planted, super embarrassing, and broke my toe. So that was like my first, and that was actually, I don't want to jinx myself, but that was the only time I broke a bone, and it was in competition. It was just a small pinky toe, but that was my first broken bone. So that was that one. Then I found out I have a herniated disc in my back. So that
Classic.
is for a while, you know, I just feel it, and you can't really do much about that, but strengthen your back, because once the disc is like out, it's out, like, you know, can't really put it back in. So I have a herniated disc. I was training a cork and I landed a little bit wrong, and I tore some cartilage off the bottom of my knee. I still don't know if I tore my meniscus. I think I kind of had a slight tear, but it wasn't like enough to show up on an MRI. But I did have cartilage kind of missing from underneath my knee. And probably my worst injury was almost 2 years ago. I was trying this, not trying, I couldn't do it, but I was trying to make an Instagram sampler. It was all for the Instagram, because I literally did this move like right before and I didn't film it. And I was like, you know, I'm going to film it so I can post on Instagram. It was a cartwheel grand master swipe. So it's kind of like a swing through flash kick, but you're sideways. And I went a little bit too much upside down instead of to the side. And my ankle like pretty much like went forward like that. The video is on my Instagram. I'll definitely forward it to you guys after. So if you want to use that, you guys can. And I heard a big snap, and you could hear it in the video too. And I thought I broke my ankle. Yeah, sorry, it's gonna be a little cringy. Wait till you see the video. I thought I broke my ankle, and I didn't know like what happened. And I was in my training room that was in my old house, and I ran upstairs to my mom, and I was like, I think I broke my ankle. And then as like time went on, I started to get into like more and more pain, and my ankle was like hot, and it was just swelling up into like the biggest ball like ever, and that was a mess. So what ended up happening was I didn't break my ankle, like the bone, but I was better off doing that, because what I did was I had 3 partially torn ligaments in my ankle, one in the front, one in the side, one in the back. So pretty much my whole entire ankle. And that I had to do tons of PT, and I was trying to compete at this one tournament and I couldn't. So it was killing me. Like, that was the frustrating part, that I couldn't compete. I was just in so much pain. I was getting sharp pain every time I thought I was getting better. Then I would like do something and I would feel it again. So, and then I was training, and I kind of landed a little bit funky, and I heard that same pop again. So I kind of re-hurt the injury. And the bad thing about ankles is once you like hurt them, they're just so easy to just keep hurting. They're never the same. Once you hurt them like one time, that's it. They're like,
it's not a bone that you broke and it comes stronger, you know, like you cannot break it twice, but oh damn, that's unfortunate.
For sure. And then, so that was my worst injury. And then kind of, it's not really funny, but it's kind of funny now. 4 Diamonds this past year, like a month or so ago, I was training in my garage with Chucks. And I guess I was going like so hard, I clipped myself like with my nunchuck in my head. And I've hit myself in the head with my chucks like plenty of times. I have like a bruise underneath my eye that's been there for years from the chuck. So that's no big deal. Sorry if you guys hear my dog barking. But back to the story. I hit my head super hard, and my whole side of my skull started to swell up. Like, I've never hit it that hard before in my life.
Wow.
And my mom was so concerned. We ended up going to the hospital that night. nothing ended up really happening, but it was really scary because of how much my head just swelled up. And that was literally a week before Diamonds, and no one knows that story. You guys are the first to actually know that, besides like people like that are around me. But yeah, I went to the hospital a week before Diamonds because I hit myself really hard with my nunchucks. Yeah.
And how the diamond went? Did you compete? Did you did well?
Yeah. I did good. I thought I hit really solid forms, and you kind of just leave it up to the judges to decide. So I was trying to make history at that tournament because I have 7 diamond rings, and the max amount of diamond rings is 8. So I was trying to win 8 or even beat the record at 9. Unfortunately, I came up short. I didn't win any this year, but I'm still proud of my forms. I think I hit really solid forms. The competition is just good. But yeah,
and no one can say just 7 rings, and it's still a lot of ring, more than one hand,
Yeah, I mean, I have the second most. So like I said, max is 8. I'm right under at 7.
So you're the most for women. You win that.
Caitlin Michelle, I believe she has 8. So I'm under her, but I do have the most weapons. Diamond rings.
That's it.
I think. Pretty sure.
That's it.
But yeah, so I have a record in that, but I wanted to really, set the record, but my head was fine. I just, that was just a crazy thing that happened.
Sooner in the podcast, before I leave for a moment, we talk about the fact that you are active on Instagram. So I don't know if you guys talk about it when I was forced to leave for a moment, but I just want to hear you about about that. I mean, when we check the gram, most of the influencers, it's not always a positive image for the youngins, But I found yours really interesting, really positive, really. You're like a good role model for young girls to follow. And do you do it like consciously, or is just who you are?
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that. I always because of, who I am in the sport, I always have to keep that in mind. Like, first of all, you should always be a good person, but I also know that I have like a following, and I know that a lot of people look up to me. So in the back of my mind, I always have to question like some things that like I might post, but now I probably shouldn't because of like the people that look up to me. But for the most part, like everything I post is like, I don't have to worry about that because that's just me. I know what you're saying, and it is kind of like a shame, like especially this day and age. There's a lot of crazy things that you see on Instagram, and it's not always positive. And if we're being honest, like I see a lot of things on my Instagram that bother me because, like I mentioned to Jeremy, like I went to school for exercise science, so I'm super big into fitness. And a lot of things that you see like fitness people posting are like super fake and is not realistic, and then it makes you feel like you're not good enough because you don't look like this person, even though you're in the gym like trying super hard. So I've come to realize that a lot of the things that you see are not real, which is a shame. So I try to be as realistic as possible on my Instagram. I post like a few fitness things like here and there, but it's just 100% me and relatable to my martial arts. Yeah, my Instagram is just mostly karate, honestly. Like I've been saying, that's my life. A few selfies here and there, but yeah, what I post on Instagram is 100% me, and I know my following, and I respect my following, and that's who I am. That's why I am this way, because of just my life and the people that follow me. So I keep that in mind. But I wish Instagram would be a better place, but unfortunately, it's not always the best sometimes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But it's good that you think about that, and it reflects on how you manage it. I mean, it's good that there's young women out there that try to give a good image of themselves without going, over sexualized and stuff like that.
Exactly.
It's really nice, especially in martial arts, that we have to be, I think, a good role model for our students and for the other younger student that follow us and stuff. So it's nice to see that.
Yeah, and plus I like to use my Instagram as like like I've been posting like the last reel that I posted was kind of funny. It was like I did a trick and I started in gym clothes and then I finished the trick and I ended in regular clothes. So I just tried to like kind of like play with like different like fun things like that. And I would like to also start using my Instagram to post like nunchuck tutorials for people. I used to do that in the past, but I stopped doing that. But I kind of want to get back into that. So yeah, like I've been saying, I would like to use it as like just a place where people can just watch me do chucks and tricks and stuff like that, and also learn some stuff.
And have you ever come to Canada to giving seminar for tournaments and stuff?
I've never done a seminar in Canada. I've done seminars before, but I've never been to Canada to do a seminar. But I would definitely come to Canada to do a seminar.
Let's go. We're gonna make this happen. But yeah,
do it. I'm not sure how it's with the borders and COVID now, but for sure when COVID...
It's possible. It's a bit more complicated than before, of course. But I mean, between US and Canada, it's easier than between some other.
But since November, it's really much easier. Me, I just came back from WKC World Championship, and it cost me a hell of a lot of money because the borderline wasn't open for cars, so I had to go there through plane. And usually, flights are cheap, but it cost me like over $600 to go to Florida, which is insane. But right now, like when I came back from Florida, boom, open. So right now, it's more easy than before. So if you want to come see us. But
I'd love to.
But yeah, my student took a picture with you at the Toronto Martial Open from a Mike Polity. That's where you had your leg in some sort of a injury, you know?
Yes, that's from that bad injury that I was just talking about. I had my foot.
Yeah.
That happened a week before that tournament. That injury.
Oh damn! Yeah. And you still went through Toronto, just like you had student or friend. Like where? Why did you go? Sorry.
Well, I was all set to compete. I was registered. And this literally happened, like, actually it happened the week of the tournament. Like, I'm pretty sure it happened on, like, a Tuesday, and the flight was, like, Thursday. I'm pretty sure. Something like that. Or maybe it was, like, the week before. But it was definitely, like, close in time. So I had already everything. I had the flight. I had the division, so I might as well have just went. But it killed me to not compete. But it was cool to see everybody there. And plus, I had a few students there, so it's always great to, you know, I'm not worried about competing, so I could kind of relax and watch my students because, you know, a lot of the times you don't really get to see as much as you would hope. But it was cool to just, you know, see a little bit more of my students there. So it was fun to go, even though I was broken.
Oh yeah, and my student, like, just for an example, you know, he watched YouTube like all the kids, and seeing you was just awesome. Even though like you weren't competing, he was like, "I saw Sammy Smith." I was like, "Yeah, I know, I saw the picture, dude." But yeah, he was really overexcited by that, so it's cool too.
That's so cute.
Yeah, you made him. Yeah.
Thank you.
And did you? I'm sure, but let's talk about it. How do you find the Quebec Open? Like, it's our only NASCAR here. So, what do you think about that one? Like, I have heard a lot of people saying like it's one of the greatest night show from all the NASCAR tournament. How do you find it?
Yeah, so Quebec was just part of the circuit. Like the NASCAR circuit has like all these tournaments in the calendar. So the Quebec Open was part of it, and Matt always went to it. Like I've always been hearing about it through my instructors. I believe my first Quebec Open was 2005. I don't know if I was an underbelt or a black belt. I'm not sure. I think I was a black belt at the time. My first Quebec was 2005, I believe. Oh my god, I don't even remember. But yeah, it was like so far
somewhere
back.
There.
Somewhere around that time. And yeah, I loved Quebec. I thought it was such a cool tournament. That was my first tournament not in the United States, so that was another like cool aspect of the tournament. And the night show has always been so awesome because it feels like it's more than a martial arts tournament. We got like the fog machine, the dancers, like the entertainment. Plus, I'm pretty sure the promoter would like just hand out tickets like as it was a regular show, like not as like a karate tournament. So that drew like a different type of crowd. Now there was people who didn't know anything about martial arts watching it. So like they were really entertained when they would see people flip and everything like that.
Yeah.
I will never forget. It was 2010 Quebec Open. I believe that was like the biggest Quebec Open because when I was on stage, I heard somebody say, I don't know if this is 100% true, but there was like 7,000 people in the crowd, like something crazy like that. And that's when
it's
like,
possible.
It was like, all around, like in the bleachers and everything, in the big room. Now they kind of moved it the past few years to like a smaller room, but it's still cool. Like that doesn't take anything away from the tournament. Quebec is one of my favorite tournaments. So sad that it didn't happen this past year and because of COVID, but I'm really hoping that it comes back in 2022, hopefully, because I would definitely love to come back to Quebec. Such a cool tournament.
Yeah, thanks. And so let's wrap it up maybe a little bit with the US Open. Like as you say, it's one of the biggest. It's on TV on ESPN, so that's kind of huge. So what was your first time that you tell us? But like the first time you did and the first time you compete and you win it, I guess. How did it win?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the US Open 2004 was my first NASCA tournament, and I was an underbelt. My first time on the stage was part of the demo team for Pro Rank, like years later. But then my first time on the stage for myself was in 2010, and I always wanted to be on the US Open stage. And I finally got on the stage, and I actually kind of won, but I was tied. Me and Jacob Pinto, I'm sure you know who Jacob Pinto is. Yeah, we tied each other. And then even dropping the highs and the lows, we were still tied. He ended up winning because I think he had more nines. It was something like that, or the center judge went with a 9 with him. So that was a little upsetting but it was still cool because it was like my first time and I didn't even expect to win. I was just happy to be on the stage. But almost won my first time. And then I did end up winning a couple other times on the US Open stage, and like I said, it's on ESPN2. It's super nerve-wracking. It's like really stressful, but like in a good way. But it definitely brings out like the best in the competitors because everyone always upgrades their form for the US Open because of, everything surrounding it. So the difficulty is always up. The competition is always harder. And it's in the middle of our season too. So it's kind of like we're not new into the season. So at that point you do have to upgrade because people kind of already know what you're doing. So you don't want to be doing the same stuff. So you kind of try to, be a little bit more creative around that time so that your forms are better. But yeah, I have 2 ISK world titles from the US Open, 1 in forms and 1 in weapons.
Wow, that is insane. Good job. Congrats, yeah. And pressure McDiamond, And do you know how many people see it like on TV or stuff like that? Like rate how many?
I don't know. But they do they not this past year, but in previous years they've live streamed it on ESPN3. So there was a live crowd, so what you were doing in that moment was also on TV, which also like just makes you a little bit more nervous. And then they rebroadcast that show like once they edit it and everything like that, like later on ESPN2. But I have no idea like how many people actually watch it. But kind of funny, like a couple months ago, somebody was in like Texas Roadhouse, like that's a restaurant that we have here, and the US Open from like a few years ago was just randomly playing. And there I was, like, on the TV. So, like, you never know. It just, like, rebroadcast at, like, random times. So that's kind of cool. You never know, like, when you're just going to pop up on the television. But, yeah.
Yeah, you're, like, with your friend eating, and, hey, that's me on the TV.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So I wasn't there. Like, somebody tagged me in on Instagram. But, yeah, it's always cool. So.
That is a nice story to end the podcast, I think. We're not going to take much time of your day. Thanks for giving us like almost an hour. It was really a nice podcast. Thanks for coming. And it was insane time. Thank you a lot.
We will keep you for a few more minutes for the Patreon. So if you want to see the rest of the interview with Sammy, go subscribe to our Patreon. And the link is somewhere here. See you.